Interactivity. Interactivity is a real-time reaction to user events. Highly responsive interactivity occurs entirely on the client side. There is no call to the server. One purpose of creating interactive websites is to increase the level of user engagement. The client-side language of choice is JavaScript. We can separate the JavaScript code to an external, separate JavaScript file. The source attribute is a pointer to this external JavaScript file, the way the source attribute is a pointer to images, for example. The JavaScript file could reside locally on your machine in the same folder as your index.html, and the syntax would look like this, for example, the source and then the name of the file. It could also reside locally on your machine in a different folder than your index.html. In that case, you have to place the name of the folder first, / the name of the file. Or it could reside somewhere on the internet, and in that case, there would be a URL between quotations with the source attribute. The document object model is a convention for representing and interacting with objects in HTML. Think about fishing. The browser throws the fishing line into the DOM, grabs the object, and manipulates it. So, for example, if the image that is supposed to animate, such as in Lightbox, when we click on an image, the image will increase in size and there will be a dark background behind it. If that image has an ID box, what happens is that the browser throws the fishing line into the DOM and looks for the element whose ID is box. If it goes to the right side, it's going to find elements whose class is item. If it goes to the left side, it's going to find that element whose ID is box. It grabs the element and makes the changes to it. jQuery is a JavaScript library that is syntactically more powerful and easier to use than JavaScript. If we're retrieving an element by ID, for example, and if the ID value is box, in JavaScript we would have to write e = document.getElementById and the value box between quotations. But in jQuery, it's enough to say e = the $, which replaces document.getElementById. It replaces this whole line, and then pound for the ID and then the value box. So jQuery is much simpler than JavaScript. If we're retrieving elements by class, such as class item, in JavaScript we would have to say elements document.getElementsByClassName and then the value between quotation marks. In jQuery we would say elements and then we replace the $, instead of document.getElementsByClassName. The $, is placed instead of this whole thing, and then dot, which represents class, and then the class name item.